Hey everybody, it's Mrs. New here. We are back in Ceramics 2 with a new project, and I'm super excited about this one. It's one of my favorites. And the official title of this project is the swoopy vase, or sometimes I put a CH in there and call it the swoopy vase. This is a cool project. I really like this one. The last project we did together was a very structured project with stiff slabs, and we made this box. The thing that's cool about this one is now we get to work with soft slabs. So we're really looking for soft, flowing, organic shapes for this particular project, okay? So instead of the very stiff, rigid, templates and everything being measured out, this one is kind of like a go with the flow kind of project. So a lot of students will like either one or the other, and that's kind of why I do these two projects back to back. So let's look at some of the examples. Some of the requirements for the swoopy vase is that you have things that are popping out and attached to the outside of the vase, and that you maybe have some texture carved in. Also that you have, somewhere in your vase, some organic kind of shapes. So sometimes maybe the edge is folding over. This one has a tree theme. So maybe thinking about a theme for your vase, and really kind of accentuating kind of the folds of the clay and letting the clay kind of do what it wants to do for this project, and working with soft slabs. Here's one that has a really specific theme. So this one kind of has a gardening theme with the watering can, a little greenhouse, and a little trowel shovel with some plants. So really kind of think about your theme for what shapes are going to go on the outside. And the shapes are just made with another thinner small slab and then slipped and scored and attached on. Sometimes they can also be made with a sprig. So we'll talk about that too in a minute. But those are just a few examples that I wanted to show you. But let's get into how to do this project. So this project does start with a slab, and you will need to roll out the slab using the slab roller. And what I usually do is roll it just a little bit thinner than the slab roller. So I run it through the slab roller and then make it a tiny bit thinner than that by just doing a few more passes with the rolling pin. I'm going to comb my slab. I want it to be nice and smooth. So instead of the box project where when I demonstrated it, I showed you to use texture mats, on this one, I don't want any texture on this because I'm going to pop out shapes and do a theme. And I'm going to do something different with the designs on my vase. So I don't really want to start with a texture mat. You could start with a texture mat if you wanted to. I want you to look at what your slab is doing. Where is the interesting spots on your slab and what shape that it's making? Is it making kind of a cloud shape? So on mine, I'm going to flip this around. I really like this top part and the shape that that's making. But for the swoopy vase, you do have to have a straight bottom on one of the sides. So I'm going to grab a ruler out of the drawer, and I'm going to start with the bottom of my vase, and I'm going to go ahead and just cut this straight, okay? So that's going to be the bottom of my vase. And then look and see what it's doing and just kind of follow the lines of what's already there. Now, if it's not very interesting and it's not very swoopy, then you can sort of do your own shape. So I want you to think about it being sort of like a cloud shape at the top and on the sides, but the bottom has to be straight, and otherwise it won't stand correctly. So that's looking pretty good. I'd probably take my finger and just kind of go around that edge. And now I'm just going to form it into a cylinder. So the other thing about the swoopy vase is that you kind of just have to go with the flow. I'm gonna stand it up and I'm going to start to swoop it into sort of a vase shape. Now I can decide, looking at my different sides, what side I want to go in the front, and I kind of like that side. But do you see how the straight bottom is important? Because now it's gonna stand nicely. And I am gonna do some overlapping with this project too. So I'm kind of pushing in this together, and then I wanna do something fun with the top. So maybe I sort of exaggerate the way this is folding over, or maybe on the sides of the vase, I sort of push in on areas, because I really want this to look almost like a piece of fabric that's sort of drapey, and swoopy. That's the official term for it. Okay, so I kind of like what the edge is doing here. I could kind of play around with this a little bit more, but make sure that it's not too straight up and down. Make sure that it has a little bit of interest. Maybe I sort of flare the bottom out or push in different areas, and make sure that it has an interesting shape. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. So now I would need to put a bottom on it, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to put flowers in my vase. So I'm gonna go ahead and use an extra little slab I prepared. I'm just gonna set this on here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a shape for the bottom, kind of following this organic shape that I made. So I can't use a cookie cutter with this, because they're all going to be kind of different. Now I am going to overshoot that a little bit. So meaning that I'm going to cut that piece just a teeny tiny bit bigger than what I need. So you can see I kind of went over just a little bit. So I'm going to move that aside. What I need to do now is slip and score this together. So I kind of have to back off here, pull it back apart, and get in there with my serrated rib. I really like the serrated rib for this one. I do need to put a lot of slip in here. So anytime you have a slab on slab situation, if there's any like air pockets in between, that's going to be problematic. That's going to make, if there's trapped air, you guys know that it's going to blow up. So I really want to make sure that I score all of this. So I'm scoring the side that I'm wrapping it around and the side, anything that's overlapping. And I'm cross-hatching with that serrated rib, and you really can't overdo the slip and the score for this project. Okay, so I really want you to like err on the side of like, oh my gosh, I've got so much slip on this thing. The other thing I really want you to do is when you flap and wrap this, I want you to push. So I really want you to push nice and hard while this is wet clay, because that's going to eliminate, if there is like a little air pocket, you're going to push that together and make sure that there's no air bubbles. So put one hand on the inside, one hand on the outside, and just really give that a good push to make sure that there's no trapped air in there. You can see I push that so much that, you know, some of my slip is pushing out the sides, and that's a good thing, and I can go ahead and clean that up. But I really want to push that around, put a lot of slip, a lot of score, okay? So that way it doesn't crack right there. All right, so now I'm ready for my bottom. I got to figure out which side my bottom went on here. Oops, I think it went this way. So same thing with that. I'm going to kind of carefully hold it. I'm going to score this bottom part of the slab. Lots of cross hatching. And then on my little cookie here, I'm just going to kind of go around the edge, rough that up. Now remember, I'm using a very soft piece of clay for this. So this is soft slab construction, not like your boxes. Those were a stiff slab construction. So it's kind of different. So now I'm going to try to place this on there the best I can. And because I have this little overlap, I'm actually going to use that. I'm going to kind of take that clay and kind of pull it up a little bit around the edge. Now I don't want too much, because I don't want it to be like too thick. So if I feel like that's too much, I can trim a little bit off of there. But that little overhang just gives me enough clay to kind of manipulate that bottom part and push it up into the base of my vase. So I really want a nice seal there, okay? So I'm gonna run my fingers on that, and this is really soft clay, so I'm kind of struggling, like I'm holding on to this thing, and I can feel it in my hands starting to sag and kind of do weird things, but that's part of the struggle. I mean, you probably struggled to some degree on your stiff slab construction and making sure everything was cut with the right angles and da-da-da. So this is a totally different construction method, right? Where everything's really soft, and it's really soft in your hand, and you might even collapse on you. It has happened. So just do the best you can, blend in that bottom. And remember, I can do more fine tuning when it is a little more leather hard. The inside, same thing. I would want to get like a wet paintbrush and smooth that out, but I kind of feel like I'm messing it up, right? It's so soft, so I want to be a little careful with it. So I would get it about to this stage, and then I would wrap it in a bag, depending on how wet it is. Maybe a little bit of wet paper towel, but not too much, because again, you don't want it to collapse. Working on a banding wheel with these is really helpful too. So this is how far you would get for day one of the project. And as this is setting aside, I want to start thinking about what am I going to pop out and what's going to be my theme. So these are the different sprigs that are in the room, and you guys can make sprigs with anything: old junk jewelry, keychains, refrigerator magnets, even old toys, anything that's small that you can push into clay, and then we bisque fire these. So these are some things that other kids have brought in over the years. So let me show you how these work. You basically take another little piece. I have an extra slab here, so I'll just use that as an example. And I'm going to push this in. So a sprig is basically a small mold. And again, look around your house, look in your junk drawer at home and see if you have some items that you can bring in for this project. It really is cool if you make your own sprig for this, and then you can use that on this assignment. So kind of look around at home and see what you can bring in. But I can make this kind of pop out. I probably cut it out a little better than that, but here it is, okay? And then I could slip and score the back, and I could start to create these fun pop-outs on the sides of my vase, which is one of the requirements for this. So the sprigs work really well for these. Also, the cookie cutters work really well for these. Obviously, you could roll out a slab, you could cookie cutter out some shapes, and that could go on the side. Or you could just kind of free-form sculpt. So you could put some coils or just make your own small shapes. Just make sure that anything that you're putting on the sides is not too thick. You would want it to be relatively low relief. So meaning, you know, not too thick, not popping out more than that meaty part of your thumb. So, you know, yeah, that would be cool. I like this idea. Maybe I'll go with sort of a Dia de los Muertos vase or something with a fall theme. I'll have to keep thinking about it and working on it. But as I work on it, working on a banding wheel is going to be really helpful, and really thinking about your vase all the way around, right? Really turning it around and looking at it from all angles and making it interesting visually from all the way around and adding a lot of detail. So these vase projects take a couple weeks. I don't want you to rush this one. I want you to really take your time with it, because I want it to be a vase that you're going to enjoy for years to come and be able to, just enjoy it, because it's a cool project. All right, you guys, I'm here if you need my help, and thanks for checking out how to make the basic part of your swoopy vase. See you later. Bye.